addicts. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
Welcome to the Scooby Panel. I'm your host, Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com, and today we'll be talking to the amazing Bob Singer. I am joined by Wendy BRYDGE, Cameron Bates, Will Davenport, and Bob Singer. And Bob, it's an honor to have you here. We are so excited to be able to talk to you. I can't even tell you how nervous I've been all day, so this is great.
I'm happy to see all of you too. I mean, it's a wonderful subject, Scooby-Doo. We all love Scooby.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm ready to answer any questions you have. I was there 27 years and I had the time of my life drawing pictures all day.
That's great.
Wonderful.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, when I was 19, I went to the Disney studios to try to get in, but luckily they didn't take me because I wasn't very well trained. So from there, they only had 2 openings out of 200. And I went to art school instead, and I sharpened my skills finally. Broke into animation at the old Seamus Culhane Studios in Hollywood. No, it was not Hollywood. It was across from Universal Studios. No, yeah, Warner Brothers. That was the one. Anyway, and they hired me to paint backgrounds. And after a year, they closed down, and I freelanced for a while. But the thing is, in art school, they didn't teach anything about cartooning, or you couldn't use photographs or airbrush. They're very restricted. So they didn't prepare me, I thought, to get into animation. So luckily in those days, when they hired a talented student at a studio, they taught you how to do the work. And would you believe that everything I learned in art school helped me in my animation career, even though they weren't teaching it? They sharpened my skills of observation, and I learned how to paint. And my drawing skills were much improved, drawing from the model. But I knew nothing about cartooning. So I was thrust into this field. Although I was painting backgrounds, I was very interested in drawing. And, you know, being new in the industry, you had to learn on the job many times. For instance, when I was freelancing, somebody asked me, we need a storyboard for this commercial. Can you do a storyboard? I said, sure. Not ever knowing what a storyboard was, or even looked like. So a friend of mine gave me some storyboard paper and gave me a few hints about close-up, medium shot, long shot, and all that business. And dialogue, where the dialogue goes. So I did the board and it was successful. So that's pretty much the story of how I picked up things. I would say yes. I would never say no to anything. Yes, I can do that. Then I would learn how to do it by asking friends or just looking at other people's work and picking it up.
That's awesome.
So I ended up at Warner Brothers doing hour-long storyboards for cartoons and live action and stock footage all at one time. And in between pictures, you know, it'd be tough to get to be a background painter at Warner Brothers, but because I was there, they wanted me to stay for the next picture. They told Warner's to take me on. And I came in and painted, I was there like 2.5, 3 years, painting backgrounds, working with Bob Gibbons, would you believe, the famous Bob Gibbons, in the same room, on Bugs Bunny backgrounds and Daffy Duck, and having a wonderful time learning how to paint backgrounds. They taught me all about the color theory and how to what brushes to use and the paper, just everything. So again, I was thrust into animation background painting. Bob and I used to spend our days working. We put Frank Sinatra records on. We listened to Frank all day while we worked, because we were both very quiet people. We didn't talk much. I didn't realize till later what a famous artist he was. He was very instrumental in the design of Bugs Bunny. And although many people after him worked on redesigning Bugs, the final person was Bob McKimson. And that's the unit that I was working in, by the way, Bob McKimson's unit. So someone asked me if I wanted to come to UPA Pictures and work as a layout man, never having done layouts. I said, sure, I can do that. Besides, it's $50 more a week. So I left Warner's after having been there a wonderful time. And I went to UPA Pictures on Mr. Magoo. And my friend, an art school friend who was there already, taught me how to do layout in about 2 weeks. I learned how to do layouts. And then he said, Bob, you're on your own. So the next 5 years I worked there. Worked on Gay Paris and Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol, a whole bunch of Dick Tracy's. We had a lot of fun. And then they closed down. And I was the last person there working with Art Babbitt, the famous animator. He was doing commercials for the studio. So there was a few weeks of work there until everybody was left out and gone. I accepted a job at Chuck Jones' Tower 12. Chuck had left Warner Brothers. He was actually fired because he had written this wonderful picture. But I wasn't happy with the Chuck Jones unit because I was just ranked as an assistant layout. So I quit and I went to Hanna-Barbera and said, hey, can you use me? And I joined them in 1964 at the very tail end of Johnny Quest. And since the layouts were pretty much done, I said, hey, I can paint backgrounds. So I went upstairs to the second floor and for several months painted Johnny Quest backgrounds, which were very realistic as opposed to cartoony, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And
the backgrounds are amazing.
Yeah. They had a really good group. We had about 6 different background painters there because the show was, the schedules, it took a long time to make the series. It was a brand new type of show. It was realistic as opposed to cartoony. So anyway, I spent the next 27 years there. And do you want to know what happened after what was
Sure.
Well, after Johnny Quest was finished, all of the New York artists they'd hired left. They went back to New York or we went to other studios because we had finished our adventure style cartoons. And unfortunately, we got it was such a success with the networks, they wanted another show like that. So we began to work on Space Ghost and Dynavoy, which were adventure style already. And us cartoonists were sort of left in the cold. We had a lot of trouble drawing that type of stuff because the old illustrators were gone, but we managed. I think I took some old Tarzan comic strips home and I copied them, sort of teach myself again how to draw the way I did in art school. So only the Johnny Quest show, the Space Ghost show was in trouble with the deadlines. It was too slow. And they called a meeting of the layout department. And I said, all right, guys, Bill Hanna was there. He said, what's wrong? What's wrong with getting these shows out? Me, the shy guy, put my hand up. And I said, there are too many backgrounds. Everybody's head swiveled around and looked at me. And I explained to her that there's 19 backgrounds in the show. I could do it for 9. And, oh, really? Oh, great. And then I went back to my desk, and Mr. Takamoto, who was head of layout at the time, said, Bob, we want you to take over the show. So that was my initiation into being a supervisor. And I really was, being a very shy person, wasn't sure I could do it, but I took a challenge and I said, okay, I'll do it. And by George, we got the shows out back on schedule. And so the next series of years, I was invited to be with the presentation crew that did new show development. We made drawings to help sell new shows to network. And Mr. Takamoto would go with Joe Barbera back east to New York and present the artwork that we made. Many a night would we stay up till 2:30 in the morning trying to get the artwork ready. Those were great days, I tell you. But eventually, when Scooby-Doo started, they asked me to run the layouts on Scooby-Doo, so I did. And I finally found a show where my natural bent, my cartooning style would fit perfectly. I love drawing in that. It's not cartoony, it's not adventure style, it's how would you call it, a comedy adventure? And I ended up running the layouts and also helping to do some of the monsters that appeared on the show, like the Electric Monster and I think Minor 49er and like, in fact, I have some original pictures here of
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, those are amazing.
That's amazing.
there's
Oh
the
wow.
Iceman. These are originals. I shouldn't have cut them out, but I did. I put them on a board.
Oh my goodness.
And there's another one. And this is this guy.
The Wax Phantom.
And then
Oh,
Oh, my favorite. She's my favorite. That's from my favorite episode out of all of the Scooby-Doos. Oh my
really, a pretty girl who's a witch. And then this guy.
Oh my goodness.
And
the star creature.
this man I'm looking at is a 50-foot seaweed monster.
Oh my
Here's Starman, and then here's this Tarman, I guess.
Oh, the tar monster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's wonderful.
So this is the way I would do a drawing and then take it to the producer and say, what do you think of this? And in all these cases, he said, fine, yeah, go ahead and do it. So I would do a cleanup and do the turns. The most difficult character I had to do was Electric Monster. So what did I do? I went to a nearby power station in Van Nuys, and I looked at all of the different pipes and equipment they had there. I couldn't find anything that would serve to become a character. So what I did was, I had to do something. So I drew just a hulking brute, similar to the ones that I showed you. But I asked the ink and paint department to shoot it on ones and with texture, a red texture, plus yellow on top of that, around the edges. And since you're shooting on ones, which is 24 frames a second, it went like this when you shot it. So with the addition of a sound, that made it look like it was something special, and it did work.
Yeah, I did.
Remember that?
Awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but the show that I enjoyed the most was Scooby-Doo. Yeah, it was a wonderful show. Do you anything particular you want me to talk about on that show? I have a couple of things I can talk about.
Can you tell us a little bit about the original concepts of Scooby and the Gang?
Well, the concept, although it was on the air in 1969, really the show began, the forces that created the show began in 1966. Everything was cartoony, Yogi Bear, Flintstones, Huckleberry Hound, and Fred Silverman, the head of children's programming at CBS, said, let's do something different. He's been noticing the popularity of some live action shows like called I Love a Mystery and The Adventures of Dobie Gillis. And he said, why don't we put something in with mystery in it? Joe went back to the studio and he called in Ken Spears and Joe Ruby. And they kicked it around and came up with this concept of 4 kids, which is very much like the other shows, and a dog. I think it was, the dog was just the 5th character. It wasn't anything special about him. But Fred Silverman said, hey, let's make the dog the lead because we need some comedy anyway. So they did. They made Scooby the main character, and all of a sudden everything gelled. And I have to go backtrack a little bit. After the meeting with Silverman, Joe thought the idea of doing adventure style like Johnny Quest. That's before Scooby. And then not only Johnny Quest, but the Galaxy Trio, the Herculoids, the superhero style shows. And then that got into trouble because people began to not like the fact there's so much violence in all these shows. And that's when again, these Silverman said, let's get some humor in here. And that's what created the Scooby-Doo type show. Anyway, that was very successful. In the old days, in the early days of animation, the characters were invented by the producers. Later on, when television came in, each layout man had to produce his own incidental characters, like the cops, the housewife, the vehicles, props. And we only had 2 or 3 or 4 shows going at one time in Hanna-Barbera. But all of a sudden, we began to be very successful. We began to sell, one year we sold 14 different shows with 13 segments each. I'll let you do the math on that. But I went to the studio and I said, hey, it doesn't work now for the layout man to design their own incidental characters. We need to have a character design department. And she said, all right, Bob. Jane Barbera was the production manager. She said, go ahead and do it. So with another person and myself, we started developing that department, and we kept hiring people until we got up to at least 15 people doing new characters, which had to be approved by the producer, of course, and making model sheets, several sheets apiece for each character. And we finally got so we could cope with all those shows. But as far as the Scooby show characters, all of them were drawn by Iwo Takamoto, who was a really one of the most greatest designers I met, along with a couple of other people, but he was near the top. And he wouldn't let anybody touch those drawings. He wanted to do every single character, all 5 characters. But he brought me a drawing of the Mystery Machine and said, Bob, I need you to decorate this. Put some color on it. So I thought to myself, hey, this is the time when the flower children were in big demand in those days. We were talking about the middle 60s. So I decorated the truck with flowers and the lettering on the side. And I compressed the lettering together so we could just ink and paint the red lettering without worrying about painting each letter. It was painted as a block.
Nice.
But hereafter, that's what the Mystery Machine looked like. It was those blue and green and then the orange or red flowers, and that was it.
It's a great design. It's
Yeah.
It really is.
Evidently, everybody's still using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because of the success of Scooby, it opened up the doors to all these different shows that use the same type of thing. A group of kids solving mysteries. And usually there was some humor in it because Scooby showed the way. And they did a lot of shows out of that same format. So it's a good thing that they had Scooby.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have anything else you'd like to know about it?
Will, you had a few questions about the villains.
Yeah, it's so great to talk to you and listen to your stories. It's amazing. So thank you for joining us. And seeing those original drawings of the villains was excellent. But I did have a couple of questions about the villains. My first question was, what influences or inspiration was used in either the visual style of the villains or the concepts, kind of the stories behind them? And the reason why I'm asking this, my second question is, some of those original villains that were developed in the 60s are almost as popular as the main characters today, right? So the space kook everyone knows, the creeper everyone knows. Do you have any thoughts as to why those villains have lasted so long, and why in some ways the villains have done just as well as the main characters?
Well, they were strange and otherworldly, except Minor 49 was not. But the Starman, the Tarman, the Electric Monster, they're all otherworldly, strange creatures, and scary creatures. Even the guy dressed with a skull inside of a spacesuit.
Yeah.
Weird. And of course, it always turned out to be the landlord or some bad guy, which took the scare away. It was a little bit scary, but not too bad. I mean, the scary people were Shaggy and Scooby. They're an unusual couple. You think of Lavin Costello or any group of people like that, comedians. One was different than the other, but these two were the same. They both were scaredy cats, which made it very funny, a new concept. But we would, as far as characters, though, I have some drawings I could show you if you'd like to see them.
Yeah, that would
Yes,
be amazing.
Please.
These are not Scooby-Doo's. These are just work that I do now. For instance, I did something similar, something new. I began to suggest we do storyboards. It's a 6-panel short board, but people buy them. They enjoy seeing things like this. I've done 3 different ones. And then I'm doing a lot of work like this, which is commission work. Everything I showed you, somebody has bought.
That's awesome.
Sometimes I do stuff for family. But these characters I draw a lot. They're very popular.
Mm-hmm.
A little Bam. But here's an example of when I was at Marvel. I worked at Marvel for a while. This is King Cole, and this is Santa's helper, and who knows who he is. The doodle. But usually, like Ruby Spears, asked me to do some characters. So here is what I would do. Because I've taught character design in a class, and I tell them, do a turnaround on the character, but don't do the same dummy pose. Give them a little, personality. So there's the 3/4. Everything I do is in 3/4 because it shows the volume. And then I do a front view and a side view. And I always enjoy drawing women, so here's some women I drew.
Oh, I love that.
That's awesome.
And this is my natural style as opposed to cartoony. That's why I like the Scooby show. Here are some professors, different kinds.
Mhm.
Professors.
That's cool.
And there is more women. I have about 6 of these pages of these women that I drew.
Wonderful.
You know, men are so hard. I mean, they're not that many kinds of men, really. There are 30 different kinds of women. And here's a group of dogs.
That's adorable.
These are just doodles of dogs. And I've done a lot of work. My wife, Harriet, whom I lost this year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I used to give her cards for every kind of holiday. And here's an example of one. I used to.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love
So
that.
nice.
Anyway, I have 16 portfolios full of this stuff.
Wow.
You
And
are
it's
an
all-
amazing artist. Amazing. I absolutely love your work.
When you come over, I'll show you all my portfolio. I feel very fortunate that I worked in animation. Maybe I'm bragging, but working, drawing funny pictures all day, you can't beat that.
Yeah. Wendy, you had some questions?
Yeah, I'm going to limit myself to one question because I want to say something first. Mr. Singer, if I never do anything else in my life, I want you to know how much you mean to all of us and what an impact and an inspiration you have had on literally millions of people's lives. You gave us a childhood that we still are in love with as adults, and we will love for the rest of our lives. And we cannot say thank you enough for all that you have done. You are a legend, and we don't know you personally, but believe me when I say that we love you and we value you, and thank you so much for everything that
Well-
you have given to so many people. Thank you, thank you, thank
Well,
you.
thank you. I appreciate those kind words. Thank you very much for saying that. I have to admit, I enjoy my career. I'm at 90, almost 94. In January, I'm still drawing and enjoying it.
That's
And,
amazing.
And I like talking about the industry, about my career too, because I have a lot of fans out there who I'm not supposed to send them pictures, but I can't. I can't help it. I send a little drawing of pebbles or something.
Nice.
I can't just say no. I'm not drawing anymore.
Yeah.
Yes. So my question for you is, we often talk about how one of the things that we love the most about Scooby-Doo is that it's a very wholesome show. It's we've talked before about the life lessons that we learned as children and that we still continue to incorporate into our lives from Scooby-Doo. And we're always saying how much we hope that no matter how far Scooby goes into the future, whoever is holding him, we want them to maintain that wholesomeness that he has, where anyone from any walk of life can watch it and enjoy it and feel good about themselves and about life. So I would like to know, while you were working at Hanna-Barbera and you were making Scooby-Doo, how much of a conscious effort was put into making the show wholesome, something that kids wouldn't just be entertained by, but something that they could potentially learn good skills and qualities from?
Well, I think you'll know by the show that the characters, Fred and the other two, Velma, they were always very polite.
Mm-hmm.
When they work with people, the other characters, because there was a lot of pushback from the people, critics. If there were anything too violent or too nasty or whatever, we would have heard about it.
Yeah.
And so our studio had to be very, very careful. But I think you're right. They're all pretty wholesome cartoons. All of the Goober and the Ghost Chasers and all those. Were good shows, and the characters are good. They weren't nasty or angry. So we were conscious of the critics out there. That's true.
Mhm.
Cameron, you have a couple questions?
Oh, for sure I do. Mr. Singer, I just want to say real quick, I've been a Scooby-Doo collector over all my life, and growing up, I always saw pictures and with your signature on them. So I just want to say you have influenced me in more ways than one. So it's an honor to be able to talk to such a legend as yourself, sir.
Thank you. You know, we're just working at our desk drawing. We didn't realize how our work was being received by kids like yourself.
No, well, I appreciate it. Yes, sir. I'm telling you, it influenced a lot of people.
We were just doing our jobs, and when I began to do personal appearances and meeting people, then I began to realize that the audience out there are looking at our work, and we didn't think about you guys when we were drawing. I tell you, we were just doing our work. But I'm so happy that you feel that way. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I have two questions for you.
Sure.
My first question for you is, how does it feel to have your hand dipped in a cartoon franchise that has been around for 52 years?
It has been a long time. It's nice for me to still be living those years by doing the drawings that I do. I do most of my work is Hanna-Barbera work. And whenever I draw, I enjoy what I'm doing. I wouldn't do it if I weren't enjoying it, but this hand is still working. This one has arthritis. You see that?
Yeah.
I think you wanted to know about Bill and Joe, didn't you? They were two different kinds of people. Although they were partners at MGM for 20 years on this Tom and Jerry's, they were very different. Bill was a very outgoing, backslapper, humorous guy. You couldn't help but like him, but he was all business. And if somebody went into his office and said, I want a raise, he would say, you want me to make you rich? Whereas Joe was like, think of Cary Grant, the way he walked with regally, and he was very pleasant and just a very nice person, and handsome as hell, and quiet and well-groomed, and just the opposite from Bill. So maybe that was the secret of the success, that they were two opposites. They could be, but they hired some very talented people. And someday I hope those people get recognition. We felt was the best crew in Hollywood, all put together in one studio. And even the freelance people that we use, Alice Toth, Marty Murphy, whether you know those names. Marty wasn't too out. He was a very quiet guy, but a wonderful cartoonist. In fact, he was the one who styled that show, Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. It was his characters. In fact, we said to Marty, hey, next week's picture is in a police station. Do you have any reference for that? He went to a police station in Hollywood, and he drew every room with all the details of typewriters and lamps and what the chairs looked like and the walls. He really did it right. So, of course, we had to simplify it down when we do the show, but that's what, to an extent, that an artist will go to. I've spent many an hour in libraries getting reference material for my work, because you have to do that. You can't just dream it all up, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Cameron?
My last question for you, sir. do you sell any of your work still, or do you keep it all for your personal gallery? And the reason I ask that is because I know the four of us would love to own a piece by you. Because I mean, like you said, your pieces, I mean, I love Scooby-Doo, but I also love Johnny Quest. And those shows have just, I mean, have influenced me all throughout my life. So I just didn't know, do you sell your work, or do you just personally keep it all for yourself?
I do. I've done a lot of commission work. In fact, I have an agent, Michelle Smart, here's her name, and she has a lot of my pencil drawings. And but it's hard to find a cell unless you make a new one. But the cells from the old studio, you can't find them anymore. But I've done a lot of commission work, and she handles them. And I also have this one. These are all original drawings, but it's on a board. It's that. Too bad I had to cut them out, but I just wanted to, because I've talked to several schools, grammar schools and high schools, and a couple of colleges. And I have a bunch of these boards that I use to, for examples. So I've asked Michelle, don't ask me to do any new drawings unless it's a head of a character. I can do that in color, but I don't want to dream up any more of these complicated limited editions, because it's don't have the patience for that now. But I told her any old drawing that I did before, I wouldn't mind making a copy of it. So if you want a certain drawing that you like, I could make a copy of it, original copy at least, and I'll sign it for you, of course.
Be amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the drawings you have behind you, they're originals?
No, they're all limited editions.
Limited editions.
Yes, well, I guess you could say they're original limiteds. I've done, when I do one, they usually give me one free, and then I frame it.
Nice.
Oh, there's something else you don't know that I do. I do portraits too. Here's one I did in art school. There.
Oh,
Oh,
my
wow.
God.
That's incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That was about a 5-hour model sitting session.
Wow.
And
It's incredible.
after that time, they stopped posing, so I didn't draw the rest of the finger.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great work.
Yeah. Anyway, before you ask, I'll tell you. No, I don't like the animation too much these days. It's changed. The new Scooby show has been redesigned. And I wish they would do the old characters the way they were.
Yeah.
And some of the, mostly it seems the cartoons, they're making the computer cartoons, like from Disney, are made for the kids like 3 to 5 years old. We don't really make too much for the adolescents or older, or their parents. The good stuff is coming out of Japan now. The theatricals are very good. And so I guess I was lucky to be at what they consider the golden age for Hanna-Barbera. I really value my time there. So are any of you artists? Are you?
Yes, I paint.
You do?
Yep.
Good.
I'm also an artist. Yep.
Do
So the
you-
artwork that I have behind me, 2 of them are Wendy's and 1 is Will's.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, someday I'd like to see closer images of them.
Yeah, I'll send you pictures of them.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Could I show Mr. I can't help myself because
Oh
it's
yeah,
in here.
absolutely.
I have
Absolutely.
a Scooby painting that I did this year that I would love to show you.
Oh, I'd like to see it.
It has some glass in it, but
there's, you can see a little bit more of me that way. Oh, that's interesting. That's
So
very
it's
nice.
it's all different props and villain pieces from across many different Scooby-Doo series, sort of just put together in a big still life that I called Scooby's Clues.
Oh, I can see them, yeah. Well, it's very well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good. Are
You are a great inspiration.
Oh, thank you. I'm always interested in the young, new artists and helping kids with their drawing.
Mhm.
And so I've done a lot of that too. I enjoy that very much.
Yeah.
Will is an artist as well.
Will's amazing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, guys. That's very nice. Yeah, I focus, I've been doing a series of all the original villains from Scooby-Doo, which is why I was asking about it. So yeah, and I just think that the designs of those original villains is so strong, which is why I was asking a little bit about where, you know, maybe what drove that. But I have a pretty good sense now, just talking to you, sort of your journey from art school to learning the more realistic style. But also, I think what you said about, you know, Scooby being a nice blend of that cartoony style influenced by realism is something I hadn't thought about before. But yeah, so I do a different villain each month and post it online. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So
I learned something, how to teach myself. If I'm interested in drawing like somebody else did, I will copy their drawings. And I did that with Norman Rockwell, who was one of my idols in those days. And I would, in pencil, I would draw a character that he'd painted with all the shading and the halftones. And I began to understand more of his approach. So from that, I learned, did you know that in animation, most animators, when they get a new character, they sit down and they copy or trace every single pose, and then they feel they understand the character, how they're drawn. If you want to draw like somebody you admire, like a comic strip, if you'll just sit down and make a close copy of their work, you'll be able to draw that character moving. And you'll be able to draw a female character that same style. It's just like programming your brain by doing that. So that's why I think that copying is a very good teacher to teach yourself what's been going on before you. And it also gives you the freedom to create new things if you know what went on before you.
Yeah.
It opens your eyes up. Studying the history. That's why I'm a student of animation. I love looking at Max Fleischer cartoons. Very underrated studio. They tried to be like Disney, but they didn't quite succeed. But I looked at, they did some wonderful things like Popeye. How can you beat Popeye? They did the Cast and Jammer Kids. Remember that? It was a cartoon. He's shaking his head.
I'm shaking my head. No, I don't know that one. I know a lot, but I don't know that one.
Well, you can just look at it on your computer. You'll see it.
Okay.
Starts with a K, Cast and Jammer. Anyway, and Betty Boop.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that Grim Natwick, who invented Betty Boop, was also an illustrator? He worked in New York before he got into animation, but he was a wonderful designer. And he was just very, very talented. So there's no reason he couldn't conquer cartooning because he was so good. I don't know what else I can tell you.
Actually, I have another question about the Mystery Machine design that I wanted to ask. One was, when you were handed the concept of decorating the van, was it already named the Mystery Machine? Who gave it that name?
Well, it might have been. because it was their car and they had to give it some name. Yeah.
Yeah. And my other question was, did you come up with the color scheme for the van? Did you do the colors and the flowers, or did you just do the?
No, I did the colors and the flowers, yes.
And I think that that's kind of amazing, because that really unique combination, the colors of the Mystery Machine, have really taken on sort of the life. I mean, just look behind Nikki right now. So it's really kind of amazing that you came up with that color combination. And anytime there's anything Scooby-Doo, it's that blue and that green and the orange. So I think
Well, I was thinking of the flower children, what they would like.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought those colors sort of reflected their personalities.
yeah,
Yeah.
it worked.
It definitely worked.
Uh-huh.
I got another question real quick, if I can ask one. My other question for you, Mr. Singer, is out of the 5 series of Scooby-Doo you worked on, what was the most challenging and what was like your favorite, would you say, sir?
Well, I think designing an electric monster was my favorite, because I had such a hard time coming up with an idea for the design, and it really worked.
It did.
It did.
The idea of having a shot on one so it'll flicker, that was the main thing that worked. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I know a lot of people wanted to get into animation today, but it's different now. I don't think it's as much fun as it used to be. I wish it were.
Yeah.
But the really good stuff is happening at Disney and Pixar, and also in the foreign countries, especially the Far East. They do wonderful things.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll find me in my portfolio many times looking through my work, remembering doing those drawings. That's fun for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Are you working on an autobiography, or?
Well, it's been talked about.
Yeah.
They've already found an author who's willing to do it, biography, write a book on me, but I'm not pushing it. When they're ready, they'll tell me. So I guess the story of my story would be just a kid who drew in high school and college, and it was pretty ordinary until I went to art school and learned how to draw. And then I picked up animation just by looking at it and trying to copy it and learn how to do it. And by watching my fellow artists, seeing what they did. So I guess most artists, I know for a fact that young artists, like 5 or 6 to 13, are all self-taught. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way to teach them anything. They have to pick it up. They have to have a drive to draw. You can't make them sit down and draw.
Yes.
They do because they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I always want to encourage that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have a lot of great artists in the Scooby community, and I think it's amazing that they still want to draw the original characters and keep them going. And it's unfortunate because we all kind of feel like Warner Brothers doesn't see anything that anyone in the community is doing. They kind of ignore us all. And I think it would be great if they would share the work that the artists are doing. They're amazing. Wendy, Will, there's some other people that are just absolutely amazing artists. And, we as fans will share their work, and hopefully that's enough to get them out there.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know whether you've seen any of the 6 Hanna-Barbera books that I produced. When I was in New York once at that toy fair, somebody came to me and said, would you like to illustrate 6 books, 28 pages, those, I guess it's 28 pages each. I said, sure, I can do that, having never illustrated a book before. But I picked it up. I went around and found out. I looked at the bookstores, looked at all the books of that type, and just plunged right in. And they gave us 8 months to design 6 books. Usually it takes a year to do a book.
Yeah.
And but I had to hire a lot of people. I think I hired 34 artists freelance from the Hanna-Barbera and other studios to draw the pages. And of course I would take a final look at them and make them right if I needed to. But as the story of me is, I didn't do it, but I said, yes, I can. And so I found out how to do it and I did it. I'm very proud of myself that way.
That's amazing.
Really.
It is. A lot of people would just say, no, I don't know how to do that. And I think that's incredible that you just picked it up and you did it. And that was that.
You can do almost anything if you want to. That's the main thing. Then find out about it and do your research and get good people. You can do things. I can't think of any more stories. Unless you have any questions, I enjoy talking to you.
We all have enjoyed talking to you. This is amazing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
thank you so much for giving us your time.
Yes, thank you.
I enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions?
We just want to reiterate again that we love you so much and we appreciate everything that you've given to us. And I really hope that you know how many people you have touched in your life and what a big deal it is for all of us. It's not nothing. It's very much a major part of all of our lives. And we just want to say thank you for everything.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything that you've done, for giving us your time. This is definitely like one of the best things ever.
Yes.
Just to
Yes,
be able to
100%.
talk to you and to listen to your stories is just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. It's been great. And seeing those original drawings is amazing.
Yeah, I have some limited editions coming out soon. I think they're making 8 or 10 of them, and I'm not
Is
sure.
it- I know we had talked about the one with the villains in the background and Scooby and Shaggy running away from the haunted house. Is that one that is going to be reproduced?
The one I did with the old house and their characters in the sky.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that one.
Oh,
That one is going to be one of them. Yeah.
that's amazing. I'm so excited for that one. I love that one so much.
And
And
Nikki, I have to tell you, you on Facebook, you told me you liked that picture and could you get a copy?
mhm.
That's what kicked it off. I went ahead and I made a copy of the copy. So
Nice.
the original that you saw is in Indiana with the family. They bought it, but I made a new one, making it as close to that vinyl as possible. And that was the first limited edition that's being made.
That's I'm definitely gonna get a copy of that. I love that one so much. Love it. So I'm so excited.
Okay, well, I'm going to be seeing next week. They're going to send me the proofs, and I may have to remark some of them to bring the color up or whatever.
Yeah.
I still got goosebumps. I can't believe we're talking to you, Mr. Singer. I mean, this is just incredible. Thank you for all your time, sir.
Well, there's a whole bunch of guys like me who did what I did, but I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
It was great talking to you. Thank you. And thank all of you for joining us for another Scooby panel. This episode was released a few weeks early in honor of Bob Singer's 94th birthday coming up on January 26th. We wish Mr. Singer a very happy birthday. Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A very special thank you to animation legend Bob Singer, artist Will Davenport, artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE, and Cameron Bates from Scooby-Doo and Cameron Too. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms, or as a web series on YouTube. If you would like to support the Scooby Panel, please go to support.ScoobyAddicts.com. Scooby Addicts art by Will Davenport, video editing by Nikki Blake, music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for our discussion on the relationships in Scooby-Doo.